question I've been asking myself this week is, what does God think about my relational status, or yours? Do the categories of married or not married, attached or unattached, matter to God? And if so, how much do they matter to God? And how exactly does a person's relational status with another affect and impact their relational status with God? What's the Christian take on human relationality? There's a Bible passage on marriage that I have always struggled with. It's from the Gospel of Matthew 22. Jesus is approached by a group of leaders from a sect called the Sadducees. And the Sadducees were a group of theologians and thinkers and people who believed that there was no resurrection. So they came up with a really cool sort of conundrum as a question to Jesus, saying, well then, how would you deal with this, Jesus, to try to trick him about a woman whose husband dies, so she then marries the brother, which is what Mosaic law calls for, but that brother dies and she marries the brother, and that brother dies. So Jesus, when after 7 brothers, they all end up at this resurrection, who's she going to be the husband to? So their question was about the resurrection, trying to trick Jesus. And Jesus answers their question about the resurrection by saying, God says, I am the God of Moses. That means Moses is still alive and God's not in relationship with dead people. But the curveball in Jesus' answer, which has relevance for this morning, was when he said this. Jesus said, you're in error because you do not know the Scriptures or the power of God. At the resurrection, people will neither marry nor be given in marriage. They will be like the angels in heaven. No marriage in heaven. None. Nada. Nix. A writer who I'm leaning on heavily for the message this morning and next week, named Laura Smith, who wrote a book called Loves Me, Not. Talk more about that later. She wrote in one of her early chapters that marriage is heading towards obsolescence. Most Christians don't live as though they believe that. In me, I'm catching a lot of life that was lived not believing that. In me, I'm realizing that around this issue of marriage, I think I'm more Mormon than I am Christian. You know, this idea of eternal marriages and nuptials here that last forever into eternity on my own planet. I live that way, and yet this is a very explicit teaching from Christ about the nature of marriage and our eternal life. And I think about the funerals I've done for a lost husband or a lost wife, and I've never said you're going to continue to be married with them, but never really said not, and that's probably just wise not to say that, but have probably more than I should have left the impression that it'll continue, what you've lost will continue the way it is or in some new way, shape, or form. Part of that's true, but part of that, and I think about the pain that I begin to feel and I've been doing this all week, thinking about, I'm not going to be with Fran for the rest of eternity. And heaven is not going to be including, at least in the way I know it, this person, this expression of who I am and she's everything to me. And you're saying, Jesus, is that no marriage in heaven? I asked Fran about it one night as we're going to bed and said, well, how do you deal with this? No marriage in heaven. She goes, well, we're just going to live together then. Yeah. Get into heaven, then get kicked out for shacking up. The truth is that our relational status and who we are as relational beings will be so materially different that there will not be a need for marriage. I'm not sure I understand why, but no marriage in heaven. Which made me wonder then about sex. No sex in heaven. before you rush for the doors. I'm not sure. We'll do a series on sex next spring. But the question begs another question from me. What could be so compelling about heaven and eternity with God that the loss of the gift of married love and life with all of its intimacies and beauties would not be an issue? Then I read a few creational words that I had to read for my Bible study group. And they go like this. Apostle Paul speaking, he says, "How blessed is God, and what a blessing he is. He's the Father of our Master, Jesus Christ, and takes us to the high places of blessing in him. Long before he laid down earth's foundations, long before God laid down earth's foundations, he had us in mind. He had you and me in mind. Had settled on us as the focus of his love, to be made whole and holy by his love. Long, long ago, he decided to adopt us into his family through Jesus Christ. What a pleasure he took in planning this. He wanted us to enter into the celebration of his lavish gift-giving by the hand of his beloved Son.